All day yesterday, I saw her sleeping there. Okay.
So am I the only one whose video is working?
It says that you're controlling it.
Well, see, and that's,
Yeah,
well, I don't know what happened, but County Tech Services made me change them all over to webinars. And so now it's all different for me. So give me a minute. I'll see if I can figure it out.
okay. Because we don't want to be incognito. Although my hair's not very good today, it would be okay.
You just leave out
I'm gonna go grab a cup of coffee while you're doing that, Tom.
Okay. Now,
it may be actually in your own Zoom account that you have.
yeah, Kathy, can you put your video on now?
Yep,
Huh.
I'm here.
Mine says you cannot start your video because the host has stopped it.
Well, I'm getting there.
And like Cheryl, I'm okay.
I think the simple, I'm just making everybody a co-host, and that should allow everybody to do what they need to do.
Hi.
And then I'll go play with the settings later before the next meeting.
You're muted as well.
So today it's a webinar, it seems like.
Yeah, the count, so I guess the county had an issue at some meeting, so Tech Services said make them all webinars.
Yeah, we actually, it was the Substance Use Disorder Awareness Commission, and we got Zoom bombed twice with some really nasty stuff. And so it's actually been, the clips have been turned over to the FBI to see what can be done.
Wow. I didn't get all those details. I was just told to make them webinars.
There are apparently people out in the dark web have publicized, you know, the links and stuff like that. So
Yeah, I've been told to only make people I recognize panelists, so.
Okay,
Yeah, that's safer.
All right, everybody, we're all here and visible. So I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Executive Committee of the Monroe County Solid Waste Management District. This is Monday, January 31st, 5:02 p.m. and we're ready to go. Mr. McGlasson, would you call the roll for the Executive Committee, please?
Munson,
Here.
Piedmont Smith,
Here.
Githens,
Here,
all are present.
Thank you, and welcome Kathy Martin and Lee Baker. Thank you for coming. And Joseph Winia is our public right now and will be speaking to us later. And we'll begin with the Executive Committee meeting minutes. Ms. Piedmont Smith, would you like to offer a motion?
Yes, I move approval of the executive committee meeting minutes from January 3rd, 2022 as amended.
second.
Thank you. And thank you, Ms. Piedmont Smith, for reviewing those. Does anybody have any questions or comments about these minutes? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote about their acceptance.
Piedmont Smith,
Yes.
Githens,
Yes,
Munson,
Yes.
motion passes.
Moving on to the Board of Director meeting minutes, we need to review these to send them on to the Board of Directors. And could we have a motion regarding this action?
Yes, I move that we forward the meeting minutes of the Board of Directors meeting of January 13th to the full board for approval.
second.
Thank you. So any questions or comments about the amended minutes?
So I
Just-
was just looking, were there some corrections of the typos and such?
Yes.
Yes, and I just wanted to clarify that the motion was to forward the amended minutes to the board.
Amended minutes, yes. thank
Yes. So actually, I'll comment that I may have seen these after Penny made comments, but I couldn't tell that she had. So I just made my own set of comments. So if we review minutes and put them back in the Dropbox, could we please change the file name to have our initials or name in them, so we know that somebody else has reviewed them?
Well, I think that, I think you looked at them before Miss Githens did, because the original file that I put in there did have track changes attributed to Penny Githens in there. So I think you must have looked at them before she did. And then since you saved yours under a separate file name, she went back into the original file that didn't look like it had had any edits done on it yet.
Oh, so we don't want to duplicate efforts and make it doubly hard for you or
So-
triply hard. Certainly not triply.
I think if you're tracking changes in the original file, those should track just like they would in a Word document. And then if somebody else goes in and opens it up after that, they should see your changes and still be able to make their own changes. So
Mhm.
for this one, I was able to see both sets of revised minutes. And 90+% of the changes were identical. And so it was pretty easy to go through and make a corrected version. So
Okay, so nice to know that Penny and I are in sync anyway. So- Okay, Isabel.
Yeah, so I to avoid that, maybe Cheryl, can you make the changes in the Dropbox? Like if you open the file without downloading it, can you make changes in there? Because that way if you change, you can open the document and then in the upper right corner, change edit to suggest. And that way we can see what everybody's suggesting as far as changes.
I can.
I know here at work, I can't, so.
You cannot do that.
Well,
I
because I'm on my work computer, I'm not supposed to be, Dropboxing with other things.
Right. So I don't know. I can try that and see. And instead of edit, I will look to see if I can suggest.
Yeah, just an idea to make sure we don't duplicate.
So what I usually do is I don't get them out of Dropbox. I download them when Tom sends them out and put them on my computer.
Oh, yeah. I just do it right in Dropbox because it's just easier.
So that's fine. I can do that. So any other comments? Let's have a roll call vote, please.
Athens,
Yes,
Munson,
Yes.
Piedmont Smith.
Yes,
Motion passes.
All right. Well, let's move to the report from our controller, Ms. Martin.
I am going to share my screen because I think I can, Tom. Can't I?
You should be able to, yes.
Yeah. Can you all see that?
Yes.
Okay. So one of the questions, and what I'm going to do is just go over the things that we talked about last time that there were some questions on that I needed to do some clarifications.
Okay.
So there was a question last time, and this is the cash flow statement for the operating account. And there was a question about the fact that this was the total revenue year to date, this figure.
Mhm.
And if we go down here, this was total expenses. And there was a question about that as far as, that seemed incorrect. So what the situation was with that is that the biggest thing is this included the $1 million that we transferred to the savings account. And
there.
also included in that is a couple other things that should not be as far as just actual expenses. And that is the payroll liability clearing account. And that's the account where we hold money until that we take out of people's paychecks until we pay those liabilities. Normally, some months that will wash out more toward the end of the month. In December, we had 3 paychecks. And the last one ended on the last day of the month, so or close to the end of the month. So we had some money left in that account. And that's a part of the operating account. So that's not a part of our expenses. We do have to factor it in when we show the cash flow statement to show that account balances. But that should not be in there. The other thing is we had a check that was that we talked about a couple meetings ago that we had that was we encumbered this money because it was a check that we wrote in 2020, correct, Tom?
Yes.
And it did not for a piece of equipment that is being delayed because of COVID issues and all of that. So we've not been able to get that. They've not cashed that check. We had to, with the change in banks, we had to cancel that check and put that back in the checking account. We encumbered that money and we will pay that when we get that straightened out with getting that delivered. So that's what this is for. If I take those things out, this is the amount that we would be looking at for the expenses.
and then what was the income? Back up higher?
See if I
Let's see
can-
that.
Well, if I recall correctly, and I think it was Ms. Piedmont Smith, and the question was more
Yeah.
about actual revenues exceeding budgeted, or I'm sorry, actual expenses exceeding budgeted expenses.
Right.
And, by $500,000 or so. And so and like Ms. Martin said, the bulk of that had to do with that $1 million transfer, and probably should have been reflected differently on the cash flow statement. And so when you reverse the things that she just discussed out, you can see that we're
So-
well under budgeted expenses, and back into our I guess probably at the upper end, or maybe a little exceeding what our our annual reversion rate has been for the past few years.
Mhm. I
So
see.
instead of looking at this figure as a total expenses versus our budgeted amount, we would look at this as total expenses versus our budgeted amount. So that's the clarification on that. And I just wanted to make sure that we got that explained, because that was one of the questions from last time. Any questions on that?
So I have a question, but I'll see if others do.
I was trying to do a thumbs up and not raise my hand.
So will this be the format that you continue to use that shows the $1 million deposit?
No, that won't be reflected on the next one.
Okay. So that's good. Then everything will make sense to us.
Yeah, it's all the same fund. We just have it separated into two different bank accounts. But for the cash flow
Yeah.
statement, it's all the same pot of money.
Okay.
And the other thing that, and I don't have a, I can stop sharing my screen because I don't have anything to show you for the other one. The other question that was brought up last time was a clarification on the, we talked about the refund and miscellaneous account and the balances in that. A large part of that was due to refunds for the auditor, state of Indiana, and the US Treasury. I did go back and pulled every one of those deposits to see what any more information on those. As I said last month, and I still haven't, because I've been doing year-end stuff, haven't done any kind of an audit on prior year, but they don't give a lot of information on what those are for, other than the year or the tax period that those are for.
Yeah.
I do know that one of them was from early last year, right before I started, and when I was doing some of the Indiana tax payments, there was one that was a duplicate from the beginning of the year, and that was what one of those payments was from. We got that back because it was a duplicate payment, and that's one of those things. I think I didn't make that, but I'm not sure what happened. But when you go to the Indiana Department of Revenue's website to make those payments, you're clicking a button, and I assume it probably got clicked twice. I don't know what happened, but we got that money back from that. There was one or two of them that said prior year and gave the year. I do not have the information as to what happened there. I do know that I feel like that we're in a good place as far as making changes going forward, and that we're not going to have these issues. And so when I get a chance, I can go back and try to look at these further. I don't know, how much time it's going to take to actually pin down what that was from and those kind of things. But as far as going forward, I feel like we're in a good place, as that we have good system in place for the payments, that we're not going to have issues with that. But
Was most of it the duplicate payment? Did that account for most of that refund?
no, it was,
Hmm.
I'm thinking it was 2,000 or 2,500 was the one from, I've got the copies here. Yeah, it was 2,500 was the one from February. So there's a larger one that was due, that was from the prior year, that was for over $4,000. So that I don't know what it was from.
Mm.
So.
It would still be good to know. I mean,
That's what I was thinking. Good to know where
Yeah, it's.
Good to
you
know,
it
so
says payroll
we don't do
taxes,
that
but
again.
Right, it says payroll taxes, but I don't know. And, like I said, I feel like we have a system in place that we're not going to make those errors, but I can't, I don't know at this point anything more than that because there's absolutely no more information given to us for the deposit than that.
Mhm. So how does it work if you contact the state auditor's office and tell them you would like to know?
Retroactively like that, I would say it would take some time, especially right now while you're dealing with tax season.
Mhm.
And they're in the, in the throes of that. I don't know how long it would take to get any clarification on that since we're going back. Because
Mhm.
I don't have anything more at this point than this check that I can go back and say, I need to know what this check exactly was for. So I
Yeah.
think my best bet would be to go back, and if I have a tax period, would be to, audit that tax period, see if I can determine what happened in that tax period that would have caused that. Because I do know because I caught that when I was doing subsequent payments for the Indiana DOR,
Mhm.
but I don't know for the prior periods. But I think that's probably a better way. It's just something that will take some time that I haven't had the time to devote to yet.
Because you'll be doing tax things this is that time of year. Oh.
Yeah. And I think those were the only two things as far as just the things that were what we had looked at last time. And then I've got some information when we get into, reviewing the trust accounts, but just as far as reviewing what we had talked about last time and kind of following up on some loose ends like that, those were the two things that I wanted to bring up. So, yeah.
Okay.
Thank
So-
you.
Thank you. Do you have anything else, board members, for Ms. Martin? Okay. Thank you, Kathy.
You're welcome.
So still on the Mr. McGlasson, I didn't ask you if you had
Well,
anything else.
I nothing really to add to that. I wanted to, I guess, get the committee's opinion. Ms. Martin and I talked about, making this a regular agenda item for the committee, with the understanding that there will be months where, there may not be anything financially to report, but for a long time, there was an attempt made to have the executive committee review cash flows and stuff before the board meeting. That kind of became unrealistic with the scheduling of the executive committee meetings. But, there used to be that time where the controller had that opportunity to make reports to the executive committee on other items that we kind of lost when we took that agenda item off. So I think, I think it might be a good idea to just have a generic controller report as a standard agenda item, and with the understanding there just maybe months where there's nothing to report because there was no questions brought up, and obviously most of the time we won't have end of the month balances done by the time the executive committee meets.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea to have it as an agenda item. I mean, if only for these things that come up during the board meetings or during our review, prior to the board meeting, that can then be explicated.
Oh, good. Sounds good. So I
Has
think
the,
go ahead. Go
sorry,
ahead.
has all the, have all the Chase accounts been closed out now?
No, they have not. We have one check that's outstanding, and we're waiting on that to clear, and we're actually going to go close the accounts either tomorrow or Wednesday because we've not been able to get that last check to clear. So it is one that's. I'll let Tom explain that.
I actually have an update on that since Ms. Martin left the office this afternoon. So, the check was misplaced and actually was found this afternoon. But talked with the vendor, and it's a $50 check. And yes, I know that it's last year's money, but it's a small amount. And we are either, was going to talk with Miss Martin in the morning, either have them return the check to us, destroy it, do something. We're not going to hold up closing the account because, you know,
Because of
Chase is
that.
now charging us some fees because of the balances being so low, and
Yep.
it's costing us more to keep it open than that check is. So
Yeah,
we're just gonna do away with that. They're gonna add it on to a future invoice. It's a vendor we have recurring invoices with. And we'll pay it out of this year and it'll be fine. Like I said, it's only
Okay.
like $52. It's not gonna upset the budget. But that way that will allow us to close everything out at Chase and move forward with German American.
okay.
Would you memorialize that information someplace so that there's never any question going forward?
But yeah, and I mean, and we'll probably have the check returned to us. We'll have a stop payment done when we close the account out. And then that way we have all of that documentation
Okay.
and the email correspondence back and forth with the vendor, trying to track down what happened to the check.
Thank you.
Good. Okay, thank you. I think we're ready to move on. More financial matters and that check signature authority. And we have Mr. Baker here on this topic. So Tom, would you tell us what we're dealing with check signatures?
Yeah, and we're following up. If you'll recall, we had a little bit of discussion on this last month. Unfortunately, because of the holiday, Mr. Baker couldn't be with us. But we did look at some potential revisions to the internal controls that you know, might need to happen in order to make that happen. And since those were drafted and we discussed a little bit the last meeting, you know, I had some additional information brought to my attention from another director, you know, about having somebody involved in the review and approval process, also being one of the signers on the check. And, you know, what kind of concerns did that bring up? So that's where we are. And, you know, you could read in the memo in there, there's some other things that need to be considered. I think that if everybody's comfortable that staff has the authority and can do this, I think that it can be done in under, you know, with revising the internal controls, but I don't think it's going to be as easy because we would have to, you know, how would we account for if one of the staff authorized to sign the checks was not in the office for illness, vacation, or whatever, because we have to have that review, that internal review and approval process occurring, you know, without the person signing the checks involved in that. That might be a little tricky to write into a policy and stuff. So there are still some you know, obstacles, hurdles that I don't think are insurmountable, but not real sure how we would overcome those at this point. And from there, I guess I'll let Mr. Baker address legal concerns, opinions, and questions he may have.
Good. Hello, Mr. Baker.
Hello. So Tom and I have discussed this on a few occasions, and at least at this juncture, I feel fairly comfortable with what has been proposed to me for review. The overriding concern from a legal perspective is a formal written policy, to the extent that we're delegating some authority to deal with money, that lays out the authority that's being delegated and to whom, and then within the policy, putting in place a layer or two of review. And I think from what I've seen so far, from what Tom has provided me, I'm comfortable with all of that. Honestly, as long as with respect to the purchase of or the payment of services or purchases that are to be made, as long as the person who is making the payment isn't the one who is the decider about the service or good to be purchased, then that's going to be just fine and is going to pass legal muster. And in general terms, that's kind of what we're looking at across the board here as far as delegation of authority to make payments on behalf of the board. And as long as it's in writing and there are some layers of review, I think it's going to be fine. Now, the matter, the twist on it that Tom just mentioned, I think maybe isn't so much a legal issue as much as it is just maybe a board a matter or a resource matter. Anyway.
So that's kind of where we are.
Mhm.
And again, I don't, it's obviously, if we're going to make a change, it's not something that we're prepared to take to the board next week. As a staff, at least, is not, as with regard to finalizing revisions to an internal control policy and establishing a procedure that works. And then I guess I'll come back and ask the committee. And I don't know that this is something at this point that needs to go to the board, but the original thought that got us going down this road was having an original signature on the check. And that's obviously something that with the three officers right here, we can make a change now and put that into effect. The only obstacle there would be that, at this time, Ms. Munson is the only signature on the account at the bank as far as board officers go. So we would need to have at least one other officer set up as a signatory at the bank in the event Ms. Munson's not available for some reason. So what is the committee's pleasure to that end?
So currently it's a stamp with Cheryl's
Yes.
name.
Currently. So,
Is that the signature stamp that we've discussed previously, Tom?
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay, yeah, that's a little problematic.
so, what does this mean? Does this mean that the chair comes in to sign the checks once a week?
Well, either that or Ms. Martin or I gather the checks and go meet you somewhere. Another.
In the alley bar.
Well, I'll be happy to help
Oh,
with
this is
that.
being recorded. Forget
Well-
that. Take that out of the recording.
And another potential that Ms. Martin and I have discussed, and I don't know how, when, where, and why the district got in the habit of paying claims on a weekly basis, but
Because there's no reason to do that.
right, we could do it. We could do it bi-weekly in conjunction with the payroll weeks, and cut it in half, which might make dealing with getting an original signature a little less
Easier.
burdensome.
Yes. Yes, it would. But to be safe, I think there should be signatures on the account for the vice chair and the secretary. Both, because you just don't know if somehow people couldn't make it to sign the checks.
And that will let Ms.
That's
Martin
easy.
work with the bank on that, because I'm not real clear if it's actual bank policy or what happened, but Ms. Munson, when you went and did your signature card, Ms. Martin, myself, and Ms. Hudson had to redo ours to have you added on there. So it may be a situation where in doing that, we all have to go do it again,
Wow.
which is, and that's, we'll have to get with the bank and figure out exactly what their policy is and what that means for us adding signatories.
So
Yep.
there's two sets of authorized signers. There's the signers on the bank accounts, right? And then there's the ones who can approve payment. So the ones who can approve payment will be a smaller group, right? Probably.
Ms. Martin, do you have, I'm not clear on how the bank has that set up. I mean, I don't,
I mean, I don't know that.
the two of us and Ms. Hudson were set up on there because we're the ones that would be going to the bank and making deposits and doing that stuff.
Are you talking about a separate group internally? Is that for approval? I
Yeah,
mean, within our office.
yes.
So Tom, she's talking about you.
Well, yeah. Ultimately, when we get around to, I mean, and no matter what we do here, we're gonna make some revisions to the internal controls because we identified other things that need to be fixed, and so yes, there would be people within the office authorized to go conduct daily bank business, and then there would be others authorized to put a signature on a payment or a withdrawal or something to that effect.
How many checks, either weekly or biweekly, are you talking about also?
Varies.
Yeah, that
I mean,
it varies quite a bit, truthfully.
But
you-
is
just
the
that you-
number, does the number reflect the number of lines that we see on the claims docket?
Yes,
Mhm.
fairly closely. There are times where there'll be, 2 or 3 lines on the docket that go on the same check because it's to the same vendor. But single digits to 20 plus in a given week would be the range.
Mhm.
An average of, I would say 15 to 18 is an average, but we have 25 sometimes easily.
Mhm.
There's no way we can approve these payments electronically at this day and age.
Well, that is something else
That's a different thing, because we do approve them. We do
Well,
approve them.
Yeah,
Right,
but
but like issuing the payment, why are we still dealing with checks?
right, and Ms. Smart and I have discussed that, and I think would be something else that would require some changes to the internal controls. But yes, in this day and age, and I've talked with some other districts that the board has passed some very simple resolutions that basically, just allow recurring monthly payments for utilities, contractual arrangements and stuff to occur electronically because it's a known. It's because it's a bill, utility bill, or because there's a contract that stipulates what that monthly payment will be. And, and what can we do, to work with some of our vendors to get some things set up electronically or on an ACH to reduce the number of checks that we have to issue.
Seems to me, Tom, that the statute that we were reviewing, I think you attached a copy of it, and it is an invitation to us to adopt a policy, at least with respect to recurring claims that are paid each month, that are really routine. It seems to offer us a procedural or statutory procedure to adopt a policy that authorizes the controller or whomever to process those claims throughout the month, as she would every other month, as long as at some point in time during a regular meeting, someone, the board gives final approval of those. But it seems to be available as a process through the statute. Seems to me.
Yeah, I would agree. And I mean, and I guess that was kind of along the same line of reasoning was where Ms. Martin and I started going out, well, can we just be signing the checks then? Because the controller has this authority.
Right.
But yeah, I think that there's an opportunity there with a resolution from the board to drastically cut back on the number of checks that have to be issued and start getting some things done electronically and basically have prior authorization from that because it's a known expense that's going to occur at a regular frequency.
Yeah, I think you can do that.
So even if it's not, so you're saying it's a known expense in advance? No, it's a known expense because they bill you.
Right. Well, we know we have utility bills that come due every
Right.
month. We have leases and other contractual arrangements that we get you know, you guys see those, the Hobbs equipment for the compactor leases. That's the
Right.
same amount, same bill comes through every month about the same time. We know that's going to happen because we have those lease agreements in place. And, you know, and those are the things that, you know, if the vendor is willing and set up to transition those to an electronic or an ACH payment, you know, like Mr. Baker was saying, you know, there's some language in the statute that allows the board
Mhm.
to adopt a policy or pass a resolution that allows those things to happen under the controller's purview and authority.
So what about instances where there's a variable amount that is charged month to month, or sometimes a month is skipped? And for example, Republic Services.
Well, yeah, and that, so the Republic is one where it shouldn't be skipped every month, but sometimes they aren't
I know,
real
it should.
timely in getting,
Yeah.
because it happens with both the bill and the host fee payment, but
Mhm.
Is the problem with them, their timeliness in submitting a bill for payment
Yeah,
or a
yeah,
claim? I think, so I think if a vendor, for example, if there's a measure of certainty or a measure of reliability in a vendor submitting a claim for payment month to month, notwithstanding their diligence about doing so, then that vendor, I think, could be placed on a list and a resolution along with any other vendor that kind of falls within that realm of reliability in submitting claims to us for payment. And those claims for that vendor, whether they're late or skip a month due to lack of diligence, whatever, can be, I think those can be paid automatically and subject to later approval.
Mhm.
and I think one that might also, you know, fit into that category would be our fuel costs.
absolutely, yeah.
You know, CNS fuels, and that is going to, you know, vary a good deal month to month, because we don't, you know, we don't put the same amount of fuel in all the vehicles each time. But we know it's something that we have to do, and we know they're going to invoice us on a monthly basis for the fuel that we purchase.
I guess I would just hesitate if the rates change. I mean, with Hoosier, we have a contract that says this is the rate, but with fuel, the rates could
The rates are
change and we
variable.
wouldn't notice.
Well, they do, but Republic, the rate stays the same, but it's based on a volume that fluctuates month to month.
Mhm.
But for fuel, does the rate stay the same?
No, I mean, it's, you know, we all see what happens when you drive by any gas station. Today it was one price, tomorrow it's a different price. And
Yeah, so-
and that happens with, you know, even within the same monthly period. You know, it's going to be X dollars a gallon on this fill up and X dollars a gallon plus or minus 10 cents on this fill up. And those are going to be on the same invoice. You know, now some of this comes back to, you know, I guess the internal control policy and, you know, our internal review of all the receipts that staff collects when they put fuel in the vehicles and matching all that up with the invoice and verifying the tax credit, because that's also something, you know, when they invoice us, the invoice includes that tax because that's just the way it's all built into the gas prices. And then they credit that back to us. And I think that's been reflected on the, there should, when those few bills come in on that claims docket, there should be some negative amounts in there for CNS fuels, and that's that tax credit coming back to us. But that, you know, some of it is just having to have, you know, the trust and the faith in the internal controls and that staff's doing due diligence and, you know, reconciling all of that before we approve payment.
So could you give us a list of the things that you would recommend that be taken care of this way so that we could review it?
Mhm.
Yeah, we could
Well,
probably put a list together and go back over, you know, past 6 months or so and give you a range of, what those monthly invoices amount to?
That sounds very good. I like that. I like knowing the amounts.
Because
As
some of them
well
are
as-
small. The lease, the compactor lease one is in the $4,000 range. And then we get to the Republic bills, upwards of $30,000. The health insurance premiums roughly $25,000. I mean, so
Mhm.
utility bills are a few hundred at most.
Right.
Up to up to $30,000.
Telephone, low.
So there, yeah, the range of prices is going to run the gamut. But I think we can put a list together for you and kind of give you over the past 6 months or so what the monthly ranges have been for the particular vendor. And see what you think about presenting a resolution to the board to basically pre-authorize payment to those vendors.
Okay. Well, that will cut down on the number of checks to be prepared and signed. And I think it would be good to further explore the twice every other week payment plan for claims. I just assumed that we had to do it every week.
No, and that's not to say that there won't be times that, a payment has to be made and it has to be made now.
Mhm.
Who knows what circumstances might dictate that, but I can't guarantee that never happens.
But I could,
I think
I
that
could
we can,
see it.
yeah, I mean, those situations may occur, but by and large, 99% of the time, I think we can get away with going to bi-weekly.
Okay.
So given all of these adjustments whereby we could decrease the number of checks, are we leaning more towards keeping the signing authority for payments with the board chair and, vice chair, secretary, if she's not available?
Well, that would be the board's decision.
Well, I'm asking my two colleagues here
Oh.
Yeah, I
whether
think
they're
that's-
leaning.
I think that's what we're looking at.
Penny, do you agree?
Yeah, and I think I hopefully will make streamline things for Ms. Martin as well.
Mhm.
I will check with the bank to see, but I'm virtually positive that we will all have to re-sign when we get the additional signatures that we need from the two of you. I would also need you to send me exactly how you would want your signatures to appear, because it would be easiest if they could go ahead and get all those documents together and get them ready. So I don't know how you normally sign. So if you could email that to me, that'd be great. And I will work on that and get that information from them and see when we can get that, get those signature cards together if that's the way you want to proceed.
When you say how I normally sign, do you mean like what name I'm on there, or what do you mean?
Exactly, like I
Yeah.
sign mine as Catherine S. Martin. So,
Okay.
it's like, do you want it, how, just how you want your signature to appear.
Okay,
So,
all right.
Well, you can just make mine exactly what you see on the screen.
okay. Make
And
sure I
mine's
spell it
already
right.
Mine's already there, exactly what you see on the screen.
Yeah, and we already have yours, but just in adding the other two, you will also have to re-sign, Cheryl, because
Yeah.
everybody will have to re-sign, but yours is already there, so that'll just be. I just want to make sure I get the other two added correctly so that I
I use a middle initial of B as in boy,
okay,
but that's the only difference.
okay, got it.
And
Thank you.
let's check with the bank and verify how all this works, because this is potentially something we have to do every January.
Well, it makes sense because there
Really?
may be different chair and vice chair and secretary.
And,
Right.
yeah,
And so, I mean, so, is it a matter of, do we have to get everybody together and we all go sign again? Or if a new slate of officers is elected, can the, 1, 2, or 3 new officers just go and add themselves? And
Hopefully.
let's just verify that with the bank so that
I
we know
will.
what we're
I'll
getting
check with
into
them.
every January, potentially.
so the hardest part would be all of us having to go together at the same time.
Right.
Right.
So it's not a big deal to have us go in once they are ready for us to come in.
I honestly don't think you have to go at the same time, but I'll
Good.
verify all that and I will let you know via email what I find out. But
Okay.
what their policy is as far as what Tom was talking about, if we have to do it every time and whether we can do it individually. I do believe you can go individually, but I will definitely make sure of that.
Okay. All right. Well, are we ready to wrap on this? And talk about investment next?
If I could ask, in
Mhm.
in deference of Mr. Baker's time, if we could move the waste tire management update up to discuss next, so that he can weigh in on the process that we've initiated with that, because he was a part of
Okay.
developing that. And then I don't know that we need him for the other 2 agenda items that would be remaining.
So that sounds good. Let's do that, please. Waste tire program update. Mr. McGlasson, do you want to begin?
Well, yeah, I just, something that was, discussed all the way back to when we were doing the 5 years solid waste management plan. And things got a little put on the back burner a little bit as we went through December and January with end of year stuff. But,
Mhm.
we wanted to make sure that we pursued a waste tire program in compliance with the statute. And so, in discussions with Mr. Baker, you can see, I think, starting on page 28 of the packet, we did what we called a request for information. And it's going to be done just like the process we would do for a request for bid or request for proposal. But this just puts it out there publicly that, hey, this is what we're interested in doing. So we need to know who's doing what and who would object, to us doing this. And, have those responses due on March 4th. Then that would give us time to present them to the board at their March meeting. And I guess, and then Mr. Baker, one question that I had for you, and I'm sorry, I'm pulling the statute up here. There is a statement in the statute about a public hearing.
Yep.
Mm.
Which provision is that, Tom? It's a wordy statute and it'll
Yeah,
take me a
and
minute to find it. Let's see.
I see it on, nope, not there. Sorry.
And I should have looked that up beforehand.
I don't see hearing in the search. I mean, I didn't find
Yeah,
hearing in the
there's not
search
hearing
in the
in
part of
there.
the packet.
Let's see. I don't see that requirement, but Tom, in any case, it does, if the district wishes to proceed with providing this service with its own workforce, we have to survey the private sector to see if it's willing or not to provide the service, and then we've got to evaluate what the reasonable cost of that service is, and if we decide that it makes sense for us to proceed forward with providing that service with our workforce, the board will have to do that by adoption of a resolution, which would require, of course, a public meeting. So, yeah.
Right, and those are all steps that will be determined based on the response we get to this request for information.
That's exactly right.
So, and it was published in the HT for the first time today.
Mhm.
And has kind of going back and forth about how else, in addition to the paper, we'll probably put it up on the website. You probably have something put on Facebook. I looked at doing direct mailing, but there are upwards of 100 plus auto service shops, people
Ooh,
in Monroe County. That
Not
was
surprised.
going to turn into a time-consuming and costly venture. Because I'm sure that any one of them, for the right price, I'll get a new tire for you, put it on your car, and deal with getting rid of the old one. So it's hard to tell which ones do and don't deal with waste tires. So try, and then and if I miss somebody, and they cried foul because they weren't notified. Direct mailing just started to seem like a lot more trouble than it was worth. But
right.
we need, I do want to find a way to put the word out to people more than just in the paper that, hey, we're
Yeah.
looking for this information, because we either need the information to give to the people that are calling us about what to do with my old tires, or we need to know that there's nobody for them to call, and we need to look at doing a program so we can help manage those.
One of the things when I was reading through this that struck me is that, we have all different kinds of tires. You have those tires that go on the huge tractors. And, then you've got the little tires that go on the golf carts, kind of thing. So are we looking at all ranges of tires, I guess?
Well, to some extent, that would depend on responses that we get, and it may be that there's not a need. There may not be a need for semi-trailer tires, because of there are an adequate number of people that deal with those. Because that's a lot of the places that will do your car don't do the semi tires. And I'm just kind of throwing things off the top of my head, but it's possible that when we get the information back, we may see a need for a few specific type of tires, and maybe not these other types of tires. And so to some extent that will depend on the responses. And then depending on those responses, then we'll have to look at what we see a need for, and what is our ability to manage those tires. We have a vendor we work with for the illegally dumped tires that we collect now. So what are they prepared to take from us, and what's the cost going to be, and is that is it something that we can provide a reasonable cost to the public for?
Right.
At the same time, who is our target audience here, and what types of tires do we expect the general public or the average resident to have? It's one thing to say, we're going to take car, truck, and ATV tires, but should we get involved with agricultural equipment tires? I don't know, and that's part of the reason we put this request out there.
Okay.
This survey really helps us measure where the gap is in provision of this service. Isn't that fair, Tom?
Yeah.
So first of all, has this survey already been submitted?
Well, it was advertised in the newspaper today for the first time.
Okay,
And today is the issue date of it. So now hopefully people see that, and the local shops start to contact us to get a copy of the packet so they can respond to the information that we're requesting.
okay.
So, you detailed in here over the years, low of 113, high of, I don't know, I can't remember, sorry. But what kinds of tires have been dumped illegally? Do you have any sense of that? Has there been any record?
Yeah, specifics off the top of my head, no, but we do have those records. But yeah, we have found backhoe tires, semi-truck tires. They're certainly not the majority of the ones we find, but it's not that we don't find those when we go do the dump cleanups.
Yeah, I don't know if under information requested, item A1C2.
I'm
Specific
looking at,
conditions of waste tires that would prohibit acceptance. I don't know if size and vehicle from which the tire comes would necessarily be included in that. I mean, the way I read that is like, okay, if it's, if it's ripped or something, we won't take it, or if it's waterlogged, we won't take it.
Well,
You know?
and that was more toward that, the things that we encounter when we do a dump cleanup, and and it's caked in mud and soil because it was partially buried for 6 months to a year.
it could also have been a planter.
Yeah.
Right,
Just saying.
it could have been a plant, but yeah, but that specific question is geared more toward the conditions that we've found when
Okay,
we've done illegal dump remediations. Because I anticipate, hopefully not to the degree, but we're not going to eliminate illegal dumping. Unfortunately, some people just aren't going to pay, no matter who it's to. So, we still want to make sure that, that if that we have the ability to manage whatever tires that we get in whatever fashion we acquire them.
So the question Penny had about what type of tire, that might not be, that information might not be obtained through this RFI, but of course we could follow up with the groups later,
Right,
whoever responds.
right. And when responses come in and, we find out, that, if there does seem to be, an adequate number of entities out there that will take tires.
and we don't have to.
Well, then it's okay. Well, what are your restrictions? And some of them may answer that under that specific conditions question. The specific condition is it has to be under 18 inches in diameter or something like that. Which now, so they're not taking tractor tires and semi tires, and that we would know that at that point. But if there's still any holes or gaps in the information we're getting, we would obviously have the opportunity to reach back out to those respondents and get some clarification or more detail.
So do you expect to be hearing from businesses that sell tires and will dispose of the old tire that they replace with the new one from their shop? Do you expect to be hearing from them?
I hope to, which just, and then
Like Sam's Club and Walmart and
and then that was, the Ms. Piedmont Smith asked about A1C2. Well, A1C1 is geared specifically toward those entities. Do they have to purchase new tires in order for you to take the old ones?
right.
And that some of the people that have called us, they've run into that.
Yep.
XYZ took them when they put new tires on my car, but now they're not going to take the 4 that are in my barn.
Yep.
So this was in the Herald Times today. Will it run more than just one day?
At this point, no, but we certainly, we have time and certainly have the option to run it again if we want to.
So
I just wanted to know.
did you just publish the notice to respondents and
Yes.
not the whole thing? Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
So I have a general question, and that is, what does the district know about what businesses do in the county in terms of waste tires? And how do they recycle them? How do they deal with them, dispose of them?
I don't have a good sense of that. I mean, unless you're talking about businesses that deal in tires or vehicle
Mhm.
repair. Those I have a sense for, but if you're talking about, ABC Excavating Company, what do they do? No, I don't,
No,
other
I-
than,
I'm talking about, the businesses that sell tires and take the old ones off and
yeah, I mean,
dispose of them.
there's a handful of vendors that service this area, one of which is who we deal with for the illegal dump tires that we collect.
Mhm.
And those, those business entities that do auto and truck tires as a part of their business will be contracted with one of those waste tire recycling companies.
Mhm.
And I think they're because of some of the, the state prohibits landfills from taking tires, whole tires at least. And so, everybody's kind of stuck, recycling is about your only, option to deal with large quantities of waste tires.
Any other questions or comments? Well, we have something to look forward to learning more about who's interested in tire recycling.
I hope we get
I-
some responses.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I'll be
That's my
happy to
biggest
get
fear.
one.
And that's
we won't
why,
get-
like I said, today was the first day, and we're obviously, re-advertising in the paper is an option. We're also looking for additional outlets and ways, to get this information out, that we're looking for information. And, so we'll continue to look for other avenues, outlets to put this notice out in, and, try to get as broad a reach as we can with that, and encourage as many responses as we can.
You might
Okay.
put something out through the Chamber of Commerce.
That one has crossed my mind. Yeah. And so,
Both Bloomington and Ellisville, that would be good.
Yep.
And we will have this on the agenda for our board meeting, so. Because so many people watch that.
yeah. Yeah, we'll put it in the well,
Sorry.
we,
You'd be surprised.
just because we don't
surprised.
see them in the Zoom feed doesn't mean they're not on Cats or watching it over the
Right.
weekend on Cats.
Okay, okay. It's just not apparent to me during the meeting. How's that?
No,
Yes, that's pretty obvious.
we can see the body count in the sign up.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you, Mr. Baker, for coming and staying for this. And we'll see you the next time we have some serious legal issue.
I'll look forward to it. See you all soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, well, let's go back then to the review of the investment policy. And Mr. McGlasson, you have much to tell us.
I don't know about, I got a whole lot. And this is, I guess with the trust fund, this is something that we, discuss with somewhat regularity when we look at the cash flow statements for the trust fund. But,
Mhm.
and I think that we've, have talked about possibly doing this more than once a year, but the policy itself does call for an annual review, by the finance committee, which is, the
Yes.
executive committee, the controller, and the executive director. So here we are.
Here we are.
And I think that, I think we all are a little, frustrated and concerned with the, with the performance of the landfill trust fund, and, the restrictions on what type of investment options we have, and where the market is, and what that's doing to the performance of those options. But I don't know the investment policy is, the way that it talks about what we can do with the investments is pretty much straight out of the statute. The statute has not changed. So I don't really know that there's, much in the policy that we can or should consider changing. But as always, irregardless of doing this annual review or not, looking at the investments, is something that we do on a regular basis and should continue to do. I think Miss Martin wants to talk a little bit about, the performance of the trust fund and what, and how that might compare to our new banking situation with having interest-bearing accounts, and whether or not, we initially were or previously had started looking at, part of the reason we had that $1 million transfer was looking at our cash reserve balance, and did we want to invest some of that money like we do with the trust fund, which led us to putting that $1 million in the savings account so that it was at least in an interest-bearing account. But I know Miss Martin has some more information about what kind of interest rates we're getting at German American and how those accounts have been performing over the past couple of months since they've been there.
Okay, so I'm not seeing that in our packet. Is this something?
Yeah, no, the actual financial information, the performance of the of the bank accounts is not in the packet, because we didn't have updated numbers since the last board meeting, because this is the last day of the month and none of that stuff has been reconciled for January yet.
Okay,
But it will be, you'll be able to see that in the cash flow statement at the board meeting.
Kathy, you're muted.
there we go.
There we go.
So seeing it in the cash flow statement is one thing, but looking at performance of investments is something I'd like to examine just themselves. You see what I mean?
In the packet, you do have the year-end statement from German American Bank on the landfill trust that shows the entire year performance.
Okay, and that was in the,
That's in
that
the
was in
packet.
the January board meeting.
That's in the packet of this meeting.
It's on page 26, Cheryl.
Today's
Oh.
packet.
Yeah.
Oh, today's packet?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm looking at it right now. I just
So that gives us a picture of what the landfill trust account did for the entire year. And I know we've had some discussions when we've looked at the cash flow statement, because that's a reflection of, for that month, what did it do? And we're looking at that from the perspective of, what was our income and what was our expenses for that month, which is basically what this is showing, but this is showing it for the entire year. And we weren't real happy with some of those things, because it's not, it's not, it doesn't look like we're doing that great on that. And when some of those questions came up a couple of months ago, I did reach out to Dawn at German American and asked her. I listed 3 questions to her, and I told her that we had talked at the board meeting and that we had some questions, and could she address basically 3 things, which she did. She called Tom and I met with her via telephone, and she went through those questions. And the 3 things I asked her were, should we look at the investment portfolio and possibly make changes? That's just kind of an overarching statement. Should we make changes? Do we need to look at this and make changes? Because that's one of the things that was brought up. Do we need to be doing something different? And, in response to that, she said kind of what we thought she was going to say, is that there's really not, we don't have a lot of wiggle room in what we can do. We're very restricted with the state statutes in what we can invest in. And we are in fixed income, short-term vehicles within the fund. She said, you know, we've bought these at low interest rates. We're not selling them. She said we can reinvest short-term securities that are rolling off at a higher rate. But we just don't have a lot that we can do right now. And that's kind of just looking at things in a bigger picture. The second thing that I asked her was, someone had stated, what about the Wilshire 5,000 index? It's up 21%. And we were curious as to why our portfolio is experiencing losses if we're seeing another fund having gains like that, and ask her if she could help with that correlation between those two things. And she said that basically we're dealing with apples and oranges. The other fund that I mentioned is made up of equity, mid cap, and stocks, and ours is fixed income only, which is a completely different type of portfolio, which is why ours is not seeing those gains. The last thing that I asked her that we discussed is there an effect of a period of rising inflation on our portfolio? And she said, yes, on paper. And that just means that as rates rise, the bonds that we hold appear to go down in value. That only become a loss if we have to sell them. If we hold on to those to maturity, which normally we do, those are going to come back up to par value, and then we would invest them at a higher rate. So she did say she's happy if there's questions that she can come and get more in depth into some of the differences in the funds, differences in the way that things are invested. She's happy to come and speak with the board or the executive committee. And, you know, we can do that.
I'm sorry, Kathy, can you repeat that last thing she said about realizing losses or gains?
It's not a loss until you sell.
Well, she said that, you know, the question was, is there an effect of in a period of rising inflation on our portfolio? And she said, as rates rise, the bonds that we hold appear to go down in value, and they only become a loss if we have to sell them, which normally we wouldn't. But if we had to sell them while they're at a reduced value, then they would become a loss. Mm-hmm. If we hold them to maturity, they're going to come back up to par value, at which point we would sell them and invest them at a higher rate, because that period of inflation, the rates would have come up. She said that the rates are rising, as we all know, and that they're expected to, in 2022, she said possibly May, she thought that rates would be up. You know, that's kind of a guess, as we all know, but that's kind of the conversation we had with her about, you know, where we were at with that particular portfolio. I think in looking at that one of the things we want to think about, because it's been mentioned before, of taking some of our other funds and investing that in a similar manner as we have with those landfill trust funds. And if I can share my screen again, this is where I think it does help to look at the cash flow statements, because this is the $1 million that we moved to a savings account. And during this time period, we had that money in the Chase account and through half of November. And if you can see, and I know we made comments about that during different months after I started, it's like, oh, we've got $1 million and we made $40 on it. You know,
Yeah, really.
We did, and I would point out that, you know, we moved it midway through November, and that month we at least got it up to 60, and in December our earnings on that was up to $127 for that month. Yeah. So I think we're in a much better place as far as where we have our money and we're earning money on that. So I would much rather see us earn money on that right now, and have that money sitting there in this money market account and not move it to that trust fund. than,
Mhm.
you know, than the opposite. So the rates that we are getting right now, and we are getting the same amount on our money market and our operating fund at German American. So we're getting
Okay.
0.15 on both of those accounts.
Mm,
And on the debt, it's based on balances on the debt account, because we're even getting money now on all of our accounts there. So some of the others that we never got anything on. So the debt, we're getting 0.05, and the cum cap fund, we're getting 0.1. So we're getting something on all of them, but we're getting 0.15 on this account. So I think it's kind of important for us to look at this in terms of, you know, the cash flow statement is at least going to tell us, you know, what are we earning on that money that we moved out of there,
Mhm.
and we can snapshot that and see what we've made on that. So I think it's important to know, you know, do we want to kind of sit tight till we can see where things are going? You know, if rates are going to rise by May, maybe we look at it at the next time that we evaluate our investment
Okay.
policy, which I think is semi-annually. You know, maybe at that point we look at it and see, is that a point which, who knows where we'll be then, but I think right now we would want to not move anything and leave it and let it at least be earning these amounts that we've got it. I feel like we're in a better place to earn some money on those funds. And I don't feel like I'm not an investment expert by any means, but I feel like with the discussions that we've had with the folks from German American in the investments or in the trust department, that there's not a lot we can do with what we've got right now with the restrictions that we have to operate under. So I kind of feel like that's where we're at on those things.
Well,
I
I would
was-
like, oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna, add too that, and I think we've all, seen, because we've got, comments made at board meetings here and there periodically looking at the cash flow statements, that there's months where that trust fund loses money.
I
And-
know, it's
It
crazy.
lost
at-
9,000.
It's
$9,000.
Yeah, and
Yep.
so at least this is, it's not a lot, it was $130 in December, but we're not losing money.
Yeah.
And so until the market starts to turn a little bit and there's a, potential for a better rate of return, I agree with Kathy that maybe we just let it sit in these interest bearing accounts and kind of keep our eye on the market and try to jump in when, when the iron's hot and have it work to our advantage.
So I would like to ask a couple of questions, please, to make sure that I understand this right. Back on page 28, the line that says total portfolio value, 756,000 plus. That's the end of the year value, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And the market,
That
what was
has
the
the
big-
accrued income in there. So, yeah.
it does have accrued income in there.
Mhm.
And what was the beginning value? Was that market value? I just wanted to calculate the percentage of,
So the value at the beginning of the period, if you look down below, the market value at beginning of period would have been the 763,826. And that would have been at the beginning of January, because that's the beginning of the period that they're covering here.
okay. At the beginning period, and the end date is, it says current period beginning, okay? And the end is 754. With accrued income, it's 756,000, correct?
Yes.
I'm just trying to. So that's if the difference between 763,000 and 54,000, we have lost substantial
Mhm.
funds here.
Yes.
Correct. That should be, that the math should work there if you take that current period and, add those, the income, the receipts, and then all of those things below that are losses, the expenses that
Yeah.
we pay, and, the amortization
Yeah.
and the unrealized gains and losses. So, yeah, we have. So that $100 and $160 that we we made on the $1 million looks pretty good when you get to the
Losses. When you-
losses.
But, so.
When you
what-
look at $9,000 in loss,
So, I'm still trying to wrap my head around, that it isn't a real loss until we sell. So are we guaranteed some
No.
kind of return or at least breaking even?
So the unrealized gains, the unrealized gain and loss portion of that, that's unrealized. And some of that is because, some of the other expenses, some of the other things that are listed there, the expenses, those are expenses, those are fees we pay on that. The amortization and those kind of things. But the unrealized gains and losses is, some of that is, I don't want to say coming back, but, that could turn around. Because we're not going to realize that until we sell it. So it depends on what the situation is when we sell it.
But they all have an end date, so we will be selling them.
But we don't know what the price will be when we sell it.
Yeah.
So if we were to
And
Right.
sell
not
it, if we
here
had
yet.
sold it December 31st, that's the loss we would have experienced.
right?
I see.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I agree with your assessment, Kathy and Tom, that we should not put any more money into these losing investments.
Absolutely.
So one of the things that the treasurer for Monroe County has put a little bit of money into is something called IN Trust. It doesn't get a great amount of return, but it's a pooling of local government money from all around the state, and it's accessible the day of that you want it. I mean, you can transfer the money out. It's like a money market account, but I think it falls under what's allowable under the statute here. So I was going to suggest that Kathy call Jessica McClellan, who's the county treasurer, and see what advice she might have for you. I know that the money that was in there that the county has that Jess takes care of, I know it had a little bit of return that was positive this past year. It wasn't great, but it certainly wasn't negative. And I don't think that we're tied to keeping all of the money here at German American Bank.
No. Yeah.
No,
So-
and the accounts, the savings account with the $1 million in it and the operating fund checking account are at maximum possible interest because of the balance, and that has the same $250,000 minimum balance that we had previously with Chase. So, and I don't think we're at risk at any time in the near future of coming close to getting below that. So, but yeah, so if Indiana Trust or, if there's something else where there's an opportunity to get above that 0.15, we should certainly be looking at that.
Well, I wasn't just talking about, I'm not talking about the operating funds as much as I am the trust fund.
Oh,
We're not
yeah.
obligated to keep that at German American,
Yeah.
right?
No, we are not.
So
That- So right now, or during 2021, the stock market did quite well.
Right.
I don't know about the bond market. And I don't know what of these are in bonds. Is it a mix of stocks and bonds?
Yes.
but we've got over 100,000 there in cash and equivalents, and that could be moved easily, right? Without any
Yeah.
loss.
Good point.
I mean, I don't,
Mhm.
I don't think any of it is in stocks, because I don't think stocks are allowed
Okay,
under
it's
the
just
statute.
bonds.
It's bonds and treasury obligations and municipal securities. But yeah, we're not, the only, the only thing would be, what money, the cash and equivalents would, we wouldn't be able, I don't think we would take a hit on if we moved that. We obviously at this point, based on what Don has told us and advised, the things that are in those bonds, we don't want to move, because we're going to start to realize that $10,000 loss.
Right.
So,
But I
yeah,
don't,
I think the Indiana Trust is certainly worth investigating, particularly if the county's
Mhm.
had good luck with it. And if
let's
it's
just
something
start
that,
it.
if it's something the county can do, then it's something that we can do, because we're all subject to
Yeah.
the same statute
Right.
on investing public funds. So,
right. So,
And what I don't know, and so please tell me, I don't remember how often money has to come out of this trust. Is it once a year, twice a year? I'm sorry, I don't have that in
There
my
is-
head.
there is no requirement.
It just has to be there in case of an emergency, right?
It has to be there and be accessible in the event that we need it for something landfill related that we can't not
Mhm.
fund otherwise.
yep,
So moving 100,000 into Indiana Trust
is nothing.
is at least something to consider.
Mhm.
Sorry, I treat this money as though it's my own and that I wouldn't be
Well,
just leaving
I
it
think
there.
I think that's the best way to do that. I think we all do that. I would like to comment on bonds, though, and I think with the infusion of federal funds, it's really hard to know whether bonds are likely to go up or down, depending on whether they involve if they're federal bonds or if they're state and local. And so do we know, Kathy? A big infusion of federal dollars is going to really help state and
We-
local.
I don't know if
Yeah.
she has that at her fingertips, but that's certainly, I mean, that's, we can get the detail of the portfolio at any time from German
Okay.
American. So,
So I would like to know what financial advisors say about bonds and their future value, depending on what kind of bonds they are.
I do have.
Well, we don't have to
I'm
do that
just
right
not
now.
sure that, I'm not sure that I know I would have to look into it to see exactly what some of these are, because I can
Yeah,
see what's on this statement, but I would want to investigate a little further to make sure that I was
right.
telling you correctly. So
Right,
I
well,
can
this
certainly
is-
look at that.
This is something that a financial advisor would be able to tell us about.
I'll try to remember to ask Ed what his crystal ball is telling him too.
Well, yes, you have a nearby consultant.
My husband's an economist. He teaches macroeconomics. Okay.
I'd be interested in that crystal ball too. So.
yeah,
Yeah.
well, we're all ears on those,
We're
the
all
crystal
ears.
ball tips.
Okay. Well, do we have more discussion or questions about our investments?
Just had one question on the investment
Go ahead.
policy.
Yes,
So on page 21 of the packet, the first page of the investment policy under 3A, Roman numeral 2. So this is talking about safety as the foremost principle.
Mhm.
This is accomplished by pre-qualifying the financial institutions, brokers, and advisors. What does pre-qualifying mean?
Well, I don't know that we defined that anywhere specifically. I mean, but that, I remember, well, and as, I mean, this policy in particular, or the current iteration of this policy, this was put together when we made the switch to German American because they asked for it. They wanted it. They weren't going to assume the trust, managing the trust fund without that. And so, when we made that switch, I mean, it had to do with, with their qualifications and certifications as a wealth advisory group and a money management organization. And that's, we weren't going to do with somebody that wasn't going to be able to provide us assurances that they were insured, that their people were certified and qualified to do this work for us. But that is certainly something that we can, look at some point, look at defining that and amending the program to put qualifications in there of what when we pre-qualify, this is what we're looking for.
I mean, I wonder if there's just some standard language or definition that we could use. I don't know. Maybe the county.
Could be looking at what kind of credentials, what letters they have after their name kind of thing, even, as well as making sure that the institution itself meets all the federal guidelines for being.
I will
sure.
research that, and if there is some industry standard definition for pre-qualified wealth advisor, we'll make people aware of what that is, and then that's our standard. And if there's not, then we will, then we can consider amending the investment policy to put our own criteria in there.
Thank you.
Okay. Other discussion on this topic? Okay, then I think we're ready to move on to apartment recycling update.
So kind of just like with the waste tires, this is one we're picking back up after having to take some time off to get through the end of the year. But have started looking at that, and you can see we've started inquiring with the city to see, and I'm told there is, I haven't seen them yet, but some population density, for specific areas of the city. Try to highlight where are population centered, where we have those residences that wouldn't be serviced by the city sanitation department. I've inquired with the city's planning department about zoning. Their initial response was it would be a government use, which basically exempts us from a lot of it. And then I posed the question of what does that mean if we're leasing the property and not owning the property? And I'm waiting on a response to that. So there may be some differences in zoning depending on ownership of the parcel once we identify a parcel. But then, we also need to, when we figure out what are we, when we look at it, when we try to identify a parcel, what are our requirements? And, so, there's going to be a cost to doing that. It's, we're talking about leasing additional compactors. So you have the cost to do that. They have to be installed. Electricity has to be run. Concrete pads have to be poured. Even if it's a gravel lot, those compactors have to sit on concrete. So there's a substantial cost. So, for example, I just, Adam Wason and I had a discussion about, the unused areas around the convention center. And I was like, well, I'm leery of that because I don't know what kind of a long-term commitment we can get from the city or the county for the parcels that they own around there, because there's plans for that. And I don't want to put this cost in and 3 years later have to rip it up and move it.
Yeah,
You know, so we have to be, you know, cognizant of that when we try to look at parcels. You know, size, you know, 15,000 square feet, it's about a third of an acre. You know, looking at what our existing sites are, that's roughly what we're looking at, plus or minus a little, depending on the dimensions of it. And, you know, are we talking about a triangle, a square, or a rectangle? The shape of it would give us, you know, a little wiggle room one way or another. But we have to, you know, but we have to be able to move trucks around in there. We have to be able to get trucks in and out of it. And those trucks are heavy. So those are, you know, things that I'm having to take into consideration as we move forward. And, you know, once we identify, you know, here's the population concentrations in areas that we need to look at finding a location, then, you know, we have to find that available parcel. Have to look at, is it something that we want to lease, that we want or can own, to purchase outright? And then size, shape, you know, getting trucks in and out and moving them around, and weight restrictions on the roads leading in and out of that parcel. So that's where we are, but we're moving it forward.
So if the solid waste district were to purchase something, is that going to be with a bond? How are you going to do that? Have you thought that far?
Well, I have, and it would depend on, you know, the parcel, the cost. You know, we keep referring, we have all these cash reserves, you know, and if it's something that we can get for $1 million or less, then we may just be able to buy it outright. You know, depending on what other, you know, projects, issues are at hand that may, you know, be biting into those cash reserves, you know, at the time we're prepared to make that jump. But it can go either way.
but we also have to plan ahead for the staff to run it,
Yes.
which will be
Well, and the,
Yeah.
our outlay each year.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
the
Yes.
upgrades that you're talking about too.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, you have the upfront capital costs to, you know, if we're going to purchase, to physically establish the facility with the equipment and stuff. And then you have the ongoing expense of the utilities, wages, insurance, you know, that we would have to account for in an annual budget moving forward.
So this would be recycling without orange bags, right? No
Correct.
orange bag disposal.
Correct.
So one thing that occurred to me that would be really nice would be a lease arrangement with College Mall and a lease arrangement with whatever that is over on the west side, near the, what do they call it? The home store?
Oh, at where the Kmart West used to be?
Yes, where Kmart West used to be. There are substantial open areas in their parking lots that aren't used even at Christmas time.
Well, and again, for me, you know, some of this also has to do with proximity to the number of apartments and those population density concentrations. Is that's the rationale, the purpose of this is to make recycling more accessible to apartment dwellers that don't have the city service and don't have an apartment complex that provides for recycling as well as trash removal, because they're only required to provide trash removal.
Right.
Which is a whole nother issue.
Which is a terrible issue.
But yeah, but so that's, you know, and that was why I inquired with the city about, is there data available that'll show where there's concentrations of high density populations that would indicate that there's apartments or at least multi-unit dwellings that aren't going to have the city services available to them. And once we get that data, then we start to look around those population centers, cores, and, you know, okay, what land is available where we could potentially put, you know, a facility.
Well, ideally, I think of downtown, but also if you needed to split it up, then east and west. We just keep building more and more multifamily or apartment complexes and not requiring any management for recycling.
Yeah,
Yeah, I have a feeling that the east side will be one of the dense areas, and then maybe
Mhm.
around the stadium also.
Mhm.
Yeah,
But we'll see what they come
yeah.
up with.
Downtown is tough.
Yeah,
Downtown's very tough.
There's not a lot of space available, and what is available is expensive, whether to lease or to purchase.
Mhm.
And to get a third of an acre or more would be very difficult.
Right. And you're also going to be, if you're leasing it, you're going to be dealing with somebody that's also looking at leasing to us. And how many millions am I losing because I can't put my 5-story apartment unit on that parcel of land?
Mhm.
I might ask Sue Scambolari, who is a member of the First United Methodist Church, what are they gonna do with that lovely parcel there
Well,
between Fourth and Third?
when I looked at the aerials, that one jumped out.
Mhm.
The city owns property up there around Showers that has nothing on it at this time.
Well, that's
Uh,
the tech park. That's the
Well,
precious
I
tech
know,
park.
that's the trades district, and I don't know that anybody's gonna want recycling in the trades district,
Yeah.
but, you know,
Well, it's kind of a trade sort of thing.
but there is space there, but it's expensive, or it's already identified for another purpose. It just hasn't happened yet. Except for that old post office building that the church owns. I'm not sure if there's plans for that or not.
They must be saving it for something.
But yeah, if you have a contact at that church and you want to reach out, or I would be happy to reach out and inquire about the availability of that parcel.
I could ask Sue, my colleague on city council, if she knows anything.
My sister got married in that church, but I don't think that counts for anything.
So I don't think you should rule out the shopping center parking lot areas,
Mhm.
the underutilized ones. Because they
Yeah,
really
I
are.
think College Mall it might be a good lead. It's
Well,
certainly,
It also brings people to those shopping areas who might not otherwise be going there.
Right.
And it's an inducement to them to go to the stores in that shopping area. So,
and I agree with Piedmont Smith that I think that area is going to show to be one of the densely populated areas.
Well, it's going to become more densely populated with the apartment complex that's going up on Pete Ellis Drive and then
Yeah.
the old
Yeah.
Kmart building.
Yeah.
yeah,
Although I think either one or both of those have promised to do recycling pickup, but
Oh, that'd be great.
Will they do it for everybody in the area?
I doubt that.
so, okay. So are we ready to move on? I guess so. Does anyone have other items for our discussion today? Mr. McGlasson, he's been waiting on this.
I have, but this is, I don't know if this is really a discussion item or of just an information, a heads up. In addition to the waste tire request for information coming due on March 3rd, we also have a request for bid for an orange bag vendor due that same day. That the hope would be, as we've done with other proposals of bids in the past, those are due, I think, at 11 a.m. on the 4th. Scheduled to be opened at a public meeting at noon that same day, so that hopefully we could bring a recommendation on award to the board at the March meeting.
Okay, so you're setting up a public meeting.
Yeah,
Or-
yeah, we've got a Zoom link and everything all set up, and that was part of the notice in the advertisement.
Mhm.
Vetted that with Mr. Baker, how to advertise that for potential of both in-person and virtual attendance, so.
Uh-huh.
Oh, I
And-
forgot something that goes with that.
Go ahead.
If I could, the Zoom information on page 29 didn't seem to be complete. There was no web address or call-in information. There was just the meeting number and password.
Mhm.
Sorry,
Yeah, and
I forgot
that's,
to say that.
we'll go back to that. Yeah, and that's, I reviewed that with Mr. Baker, and I think we did forget the web address, the zoom.in or the zoom.us.
Mhm.
Sorry, I didn't mean to take us off track here, but
No, but
I
that's,
think people
that's-
could find it though, if they go to zoom.us and log in and,
I mean, the ID and the
Okay.
if you can find your way to Zoom's website, the ID and the password is what you need to access a meeting.
mhm.
And I will double check with Mr. Baker on that. He vetted that notice, but
okay.
he may have missed that as well. And if so, we just we just issue an amended notice and
Well, and
Okay.
it's a public meeting. It'll be on a website, one of
Mhm.
the counties or the solid waste districts or both. So,
yeah, it'll be on our web where the meeting is occurring at our office.
Mhm.
And, but it's not, been advised, we don't need the owl thing because there will not be any, people doing it virtually will be attending, not participating.
Yeah.
All we're doing is opening things and saying this was, bid received from company XYZ in the amount of this. We'll review for completeness. I mean, that's all that we're doing at that meeting, taking
Mhm.
everything under consideration. With again, well, the request for information is a little different, but the bids would be the hope to bring it to the board at the meeting with a recommendation for award.
Okay. So do you need to have any board members at that public meeting?
No, you're certainly welcome to be present if you wish, but there's no decision being made.
Right.
So it's just a public, once the deadline is passed, it's just publicly acknowledging the deadline is passed. These are the bids that were received. And they'll be
Okay.
taken under advisement and presented to the board for consideration.
Okay, and that date is what?
March 4th
March 4th.
for both the waste
Yeah.
tire request for information and the orange bag request for bid.
Okay. Very good. So does anybody have other information for discussion or heads up? Mr. Winia would like to say something.
Good, thank you.
Hi, Joseph.
Hello, how are you all doing?
Good.
Good. Thank you for the opportunity. I just had a couple of things I wanted to mention. And the first is just a very brief follow-up from December remarks about the CAC membership term duration preference. We did discuss that in our January meeting, and there was just I would say a general satisfaction with the one-year term, and that it was just accessible for people, particularly students who might not be staying for 2-year durations, might be daunted by that duration. So no need to take action there on the CAC's behalf. And the second item is that I would like to propose setting up a joint CAC board meeting at the next available opportunity. In particular, because during the January meeting as well, there were a few different members who had a few different items they would like to discuss with the board and thought that would be a good opportunity. And those items in particular were the biodigester feasibility partnership topic for discussion. If that is still indeed being discussed whenever our meeting is held and there hasn't already been information issued by the city or decisions made by the district on it. But the other two were the website and district management plan goals and objectives. And then the last was the apartment recycling topic. There were a couple of members who had thoughts they wanted to weigh in on that as well. And one that came to my mind afterward, it could be considered a fourth or just kind of a grouping of all of them, is just a general 5-year management plan, sort of check-in and update and planning for this calendar year. Since, as Tom had mentioned earlier, that was agreed upon half a year ago, and then a lot of other things had to happen in between. So it seems like a prudent thing to just check back in and then also kind of weigh in on how all of those previous 3 topics fall within the 5-year management plan specific objectives.
Mhm.
So that is what I wanted to bring before you from the CAC this evening.
So with that request, who has any ideas? Isabel?
I didn't quite understand the item about the website. Is this just to give feedback? Is there a test site that we can look at, or?
So it's under the goals and objectives of the 5-year management plan, and it's under, sorry, let me quick pull it up.
Would you like me to share my screen? I have the test site up.
I think
Do you
that
wanna-
would
do you
be
wanna
pretty
see
sweet if
it?
you want to do. Yeah, we can do that in the meantime.
That'd be cool.
I'll just add. So it was goal number 3 of education, to rework the Go Green District brand with responsibility focused language. And that
Oh, the
was,
branding, yes.
yeah, so yeah, maybe that was the better term to use. And it came to mind because the website is on the precipice of being launched potentially tomorrow. And I think there are many aspects of it that would benefit from having a conversation about the rebranding and the language, and also addressing that sooner than later, especially if there's other programs being launched by the district, like the Waste Tire program. I think it would be nice to have the rebranding discussed sooner than later, to try to have that provided up front to really become the banner in the face of a lot of these new initiatives. Turn it over to Tom with the screen share.
Cool.
I guess to that last point, I would agree with Mr. Winia, and just because we roll out the website doesn't mean that it cannot be changed. But having the new website, to work off of, it kind of makes sense to address, the rebranding of the district. If there's still an interest from the board to do that. And obviously what you're looking at now is not a finished product. As Mr. Winia mentioned, there's still some tweaks going, but we do hope in the next day or so to get those resolved and get it back out. But this would be the home page. We start off with doing our locations right off the bat with hours of operation. So that's front and center for everybody. And then immediately get into, with icons, but, a list and description of, what materials that we accept, at all of our locations. And then a section on what South Walnut accepts in addition to what the rural sites accept. And then back up here, there's a link to an accepted items page, which gives more detail on the things, the materials that we do accept. And then a breakdown by what's accepted at all locations versus South Walnut. And then it's a section that on things that we do not accept. We don't have an avenue to get sent off for recycling or repurposing at this time. So you have that, and then just, those do have a little drop down for each of those with a more detailed description, and if possible, links to some other options people can look at to possibly get those recycled or in some other way managed other than through the waste stream. Joe, feel free to jump in as I know you've done a lot of work on this too, and if I'm missing anything, there's a lot here, but like I think we discussed either the last executive committee meeting or last board meeting, part of the intent, we think that it's a little easier to navigate, a little more user friendly, and hopefully, with the various tabs and the descriptions that we're currently using, people are more easily directed to where they're trying to get to. We do still have the main menu bar up here with drop downs for, specifics for our services. About a contact, who we are, a calendar. I will pull up, we are using a different calendar app in this website, and and Joe, do you want to talk about that? I know that you were a lot more involved in choosing the calendar and how it works.
I'm sorry, may I just jump in because I have to leave
Yes,
to catch my last bus home. So I just want to say I'm in favor of a joint meeting and hopefully we can find a time.
okay,
Okay.
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
What it might be more convenient and efficient. And I mean, Mr. Winnie, unless you have any objections, I could share the link to the test site and the password with the executive committee, and you guys could review it at your leisure. And obviously, let me know if you have any comments, questions, or suggestions.
I have no objection and actually support that idea.
So about a joint meeting, would it be possible for the CAC to meet at the board's regular time?
Let's see. I believe that
It's
might
a-
be,
It starts
think
at
there's
4,
one
which
member that I know
can
of.
be problematic.
okay, yes, in that case, that's what I was going to verify. In that case, I know there's one member who would not be able to attend, who normally can't attend 4 p.m. weekday events. But as for the rest, I think it's on a case-by-case basis that I'm not certain about. So I
Okay,
could certainly, at the very least, provide that as an option. And then potentially, if you have any alternatives, I could provide those and then give feedback on when the CAC is available.
so the discussions would be the apartment recycling, the website, and what was the other item? I didn't write it down.
So the biodigester feasibility study
biodigester, yeah.
partnership. Yeah.
Yeah,
And then the umbrella concept could be also or a fourth concept could be general 5-year management plan
5-year plan.
planning. Yeah, the execution planning for the year, I should say.
I will throw out with regard to the anaerobic digester. I guess I can stop sharing my screen now. I'm not real sure where things sit on that. I mean, at the board meeting, there was discussions and requests made for me to work with the utilities and develop a proposal to bring back to the district about exactly what it is that they're asking from the district, what they think the district's going to get out of of such an investment. And they have not responded to my inquiries about meeting to sit down and start to put that proposal together. So, and I do recall, at the meeting, Mr. Kelson had said, that this was also something that they would have to take up with the Utilities Regulatory Board, that they had not done that yet, at least at the time they had presented to our board. So, it may be that this just isn't moving as fast as we thought it might at our last board meeting. So I guess that in answer to Mr. Winnia's concern question that was raised, no, I'm not aware of anything that's happened, and I don't know at this point that that anything is going to be brought to the board at the February meeting where they would make a decision. So.
So,
I will say, just in the little bit I saw of the website, it looks far less cluttered than
yes,
the old
it
one.
looks
It's so much cleaner. I really,
clean and neat.
sorry.
I
just
like
wanted
it.
to throw that in.
I wanted to get in and see that calendar and I couldn't just
Oh,
do it, but
well, yeah, like I said, I will email you two and Ms. Piedmont Smith as well, the link and the password to that test site. So you can go on there and just kind of look around and see for yourself what, what it's potentially going to look like. Again, there's some, and Joe, correct me or add if I forget anything. There's some pictures that we're still looking at swapping out. And some I guess some finalizing of some details on some of the accepted, non-accepted item lists. But not things that we want to hold up rolling out the website on. We'll either pull things off until they're fixed, or we'll make sure we get at least placeholder pictures that are more appropriate in place until we, get district related pictures prepared, formatted to be on the website.
so. What would you like to do with the website and the larger board meeting? What do you think would be a good? Do you just want to review it? Do you just want to present this, or are you looking for feedback?
Well, for me, I think that, always looking for feedback. Even a year down the road, we'll be looking for feedback. If,
Okay.
if our circumstances change or external circumstances change that mean we should alter something on the website, we always, are looking for those things. But, just thoughts, comments, questions, suggestions, feedback. Right now, as we look at an initial rollout, the developer has agreed. We're pushing to get it rolled out and get it taken live, and kind of recognizing that they're still going to work with us for 2, 3, maybe 4 weeks without additional charges to do some of these final changes that we've been talking about prior to the rollout. But there will come a point in time where it's no longer the rollout; it's now updates and maintenance, and there'll be some charges for that. But
okay. So the reason I suggested it would be good if the CAC wants to meet jointly with the board. I think we need to know what is going to be discussed at that meeting. And so
I guess from my perspective, and I don't, depending on what kind of agenda you want and what kind of length of your meeting is you're looking at. I think the apartment recycling, the anaerobic digester, and the reviewing or assessing progress on the solid waste management plan would be my top 3 priorities, because I think the website is something that people can just do that on their time and look at the website, and they can just call or email with, hey, this didn't look right, or explain this to me, or I think we should do it this way. And, we can always, as I said, I'm always open to those types of things, and willing to consider changes at any point in time. So,
but as you say, we're not ready to move to a discussion of the digester proposal yet, because we don't have a proposal to consider.
Well, that would be dependent on, I guess, what the CAC was looking for out of that. Maybe they're wanting to provide information to the board that they want the board to consider when they consider a proposal. So Joe has his hand up.
Yes, I just was waiting for Joe to answer.
Oh,
I apologize. I will
That's
go ahead and
okay.
do so. Yeah, in response to your question, the CAC didn't indicate specifically what they had wanted to communicate. I think it would have, the idea that I got was that it would be more of a discussion. So I don't think a proposal would be necessary to be discussed. I think there are probably thoughts already available they would be interested in sharing. And just as a second note to the
Mhm.
preceding remarks about the district website, I think the feedback that I in particular would be interested in knowing is more about how the rebranding and like language update could be integrated with how the website is presented now, or maybe opportunities for making those changes, or having that thought in mind when reviewing the website, rather than to the current content of the website or its design, which like Mr. McClassen had mentioned would still be of interest. And for me, in more particular interest would be the rebranding portion of things, and just knowing that the website would be substantially impacted by that. So if when reviewing the website, everyone is keeping in mind, how could this look like with a different brand, or what would that brand look like since this is what the site looks like, and sort of
So
incorporating those ideas.
The brand being the little green leaf.
Well, the Go Green kind of motto too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
what's sitting
logo.
right behind Tom's.
Yeah, the
right
logo, oh, I gotta, well, where green living begins, that the motto, is that the slogan, whatever you want to, is that, are those, is that the direction that we still want to go? Is that the image we still want to project? Or, I guess that's what a rebranding discussion is. Do we want to, do we want to scrap it all and start from scratch? Do we want to keep the logo and change the slogan? Or, what is it that we,
Mhm.
and I think I think that's a discussion for staff, the board, the CAC, for all interested parties to be involved in.
Okay, good. So I hate to set a meeting time that would leave out one of the CAC members, but I'm also thinking about the board members, and it's really hard to get everybody
Mhm.
to agree to a different time. We've done this during budget discussions, I know, and
Well-
that's challenging.
Well, maybe Mr. Winia could poll the CAC membership about the March and April board meeting dates, and availability in the 4 to 4:30 time frame, and then we can look at the joint meeting being at the front end of the board meeting or at the back end of the board meeting.
Or at the back end, if that would help more CAC members attend. But we also may lose some board members.
And that was precisely my question as well, as to when the joint portion would take place, if it were during the time of a normal board meeting.
Well,
Okay.
in that case, thinking about it, I might recommend the April meeting, because we have the request for bid and the request for information already scheduled due and anticipating being on the agenda for the March board meeting.
Okay,
would-
so
If we're going to look at the joint meeting at the back end, that may be better for the CAC membership possibly, but more potential to lose board members if that meeting starts to run long.
okay.
Right, I can take that back to the CAC then.
I think
communicate.
that's a good recommendation, Tom. So, do we have any more items to discuss? In that case, we will conclude this long meeting, and this might be our record. I don't keep track.
Even if
But-
there is more to discuss, I'm not going to bring it up now.
No, not after I said that.
Sorry.
But when I said, is there anything more to discuss? And nobody said anything. So I'm jumping in to say, we are going to adjourn this meeting, and thank you everyone for your time and your thoughts. We
Yes,
are
thank you,
adjourned.
everyone.
Thanks.
Bye.
Hope you get lots of responses, Tom.
I do too.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.